Hello guys and welcome back to Jawoodle Park. My name is Josh, but you can call me Jonah Birch. Today we're going to take a look at how we make Horde base real simple in 5 different variations, as you can see right in front of me. People ask me all the time, Jonah, how the hell do you do your Horde bases? They look so simple, but I don't understand. So I am here to show you my 5 different variants of my melee bases, my ranged bases, and well, that's it. I can do a more advanced video on how I do the pipe bomb base and my full-on trap base, but that's something in another video. So let's go into this right here, what you see in front of me. This is the simplest, most basic variant of my melee horde base that I do for the first 3 to 4 weeks in the game. So, in its very simplicity, this base is that you stand right here, the zombies come up this path, and they walk this little plank right here, and you just hit them with whatever you got. This setup works for essentially every single melee weapon in the game, but I wouldn't recommend it for a stun baton setup, nor a sledge setup. It's kind of weird that I'm showing the stun baton right here, but this works for literally any other melee weapon in the game. So this is my go-to way of doing the horde bases, the first few horde bases. So as you can see, it's a 3x3 concrete pad right here, hooked up to the scaffolding ladder, over to the centralized pole, to the regular blocks. I got the different blocks right here, the regular cube, scaffolding ladder, and pole side centered. That's what it's called. Whoa, hold on there, Past Jonah. You forgot to mention something. This concrete pad does not need to be concrete for the first few horde nights. It's not an important thing. If you have it concrete, that's great, but it doesn't need to be concrete. Like that little box where you're actually like hitting through, yeah, that could be concrete, but the rest does not need to be concrete. Maybe the block at the very bottom of the steps, that could be concrete, but it doesn't all need to be concrete. This is just a demonstration. Also, this 3x3 pad sort of represents a POI, right? So this whole thing can just be hooked up to a POI. I just want to mention that as Past Jonah is a little bit all over the place. Thank you. That's the only thing I'm using. The only thing important here is that the concrete scaffolding ladder needs to be rotated towards you in the way that you need to be on the side of the actual block. Otherwise zombies can climb up this thing, and that's gonna be pretty bad. Although there is nowhere for them to climb, but it makes it a lot easier if you just rotate it this way. Alright, we're on the second one. As opposed to the first one, this one is more ranged focused, meaning that this one can do everything. This is essentially the ultimate go-to way of doing that's how I do my horde bases. This one is, I think, 12 blocks long. It doesn't really matter, but it's supposed to give you a nice corridor to shoot down, to mow down enemies with essentially any weapon in the game. Works with this. I said that this one works with any melee weapon. Well, this one also works with every melee weapon. It just takes longer for them to loop around. Which, if you're in the early stages, in the first few horde nights, you would like something that makes them loop a little bit more often, so that you can kill them more effectively, get more experience, get more loot. But this one is ideal for anything that pierces. But any weapon works, right? Literally any weapons works. The only thing I wouldn't do for this one would be the stun baton, right? Like, because it works well, but there's a more optimal way. We'll get to that. And this is the exact same setup as the previous one. It's just this path, instead of being 2 blocks, is 12 blocks. And of course, the reason why there's no stairs here is so the zombies take a little bit longer to get up, which is very helpful early on, so it's more recommended here. Maybe for this setup, I would just put some stairs here, or don't. Doesn't really matter. The important thing is that these are for the first 4 weeks in the game, so you don't really have to worry too much about demos and stuff like that. So this is a very simple way of doing it. Okay, we're at the third one. This one is exactly like the first one, but with a little change. And if you do not like the zombies having a clear path to you, you can do something like this. It is exactly like the two poles over here, but they're half poles. It's called this. Pole half side centered. So it's just pole half side centered instead of pole side centered. You put them opposite to one another. This is because when they are getting up here, the zombies get over here. But when there's one zombie that's staying here and you're killing him, as you're killing him, zombies behind that cannot get there. Because technically there's a thing here. So they just go there and they go down, right? So you kill the zombie, there's a new zombie that takes his place. You can kill that one. So this is a really nice and safe way to make it so the zombies will never pile up on the same location. Sometimes they can, I don't know how that works, but sometimes there's two zombies right next to each other, but it's a really rare. So this setup sort of prevents the overflow of zombies, making this a much safer variant than this. Now, with one caveat, this is a little less effective. Some zombies will not make it. They won't make it across like that. They will pretty much just go here and they'll miss it just about. Right. So you kind of have like a half loop, half effective sort of base. I used this for a long time, but I like this actually more because I can get way more zombie kills this way. So I think it's very nice. All right, for my fourth variation, and this is the Stumbaton variation. This is the only thing I would do different. Instead of making it one block, I would make it 3 blocks wide as the area you stand on. And you're replacing the scaffolding ladder with the double pole rotated on its side. And this is for the simple fact that when you're hitting massive amount of zombies, you want to be able to... When there's a lot of zombies in front of you, they will spread out, and if you're using the scaffolding ladder, you occasionally will hit these poles, right? Or the bars. So if you use this, you'll be much better off, right? And the thing is with a Stumbaton setup is that you want to use Nurtats. Nurtats give you an AoE shock, right? So there is going to be a crap ton of zombies coming up here. There's probably going to be 10 zombies or more standing right here. And you're going to be able to do one hit and proc your shock, and everything is going to take damage. So this only really works in the early game as your... The shock damage is more prevalent early on as they don't have as much HP because you won't have as many ferals and rads and stuff like that. So the AoE will actually do something valuable. I suppose a late game variant of this would be to slim it down and utilize more this sort of approach in order to proc Physician, Euthanizer. This is what you want to proc. 10% chance for insta-kill. And this is what makes the Stumbaton so much fun and why it's so strong in the late game. Because they can be a zombie that comes up and he has over 2,000 health, but you can still one-shot that zombie. Now, 10% is, you know, the odds are decent enough that you don't really need to, do the full thing of hitting it 10 times to get the one proc. But sometimes you get really unlucky. But the thing is, the thing that also comes with Physician is also Amputator. You get a 20% additional chance to dismember, meaning paired with Intellect, you actually have 70% chance to dismember. So you don't need to proc Euthanizer all the time. You will actually get a lot of dismemberment going on with that, and plus zombies will be stunned all the time. So they won't do any damage to this thing. And, oh, sorry, this one. And it is a, very effective, as you actually start getting dire wolves now early on, and they have like 3,500 HP. And if you can slap those in the face, that's super strong. And the thing with stun baton though is that you have to buy the nerd tats out of vending machines, and they last for 9 minutes, 6 minutes, sorry. They will last for 9 minutes though if you do level Iron Gut. That increases the buff. The buffs from consumables last 50% longer, meaning they will last 9 minutes. And if you play with 60-minute days, which is actually 64-minute days, and there's 1/4 of that, which is 16 minutes. Generally, you only need 2 of these, right? So 2 of these with a few levels in Iron Gut will do just fine. Yes, you maybe not get the last minute. Like, you use 3 of these if you really want to get the most out of it. All right, now for the 5th variant, and this is really just a variant of the stun baton setup, and it has this little gap utilizing 2 half blocks to sort of mimic this variant. So if you want to have a stun baton setup, but you feel a little bit overwhelmed by how many zombies are here, this will sort of make it so you kind of have like 4 or 5 zombies standing here instead of having a bunch of zombies behind, because they will actually loop behind them. So that really helps. But the setup is, the thought process is exactly the same, right? You just want to keep slapping. And also I need to note that this book is very important. The stun baton charging. It gives you that 50% chance for a power attack to instantly charge, meaning that every other attack with a power attack will be a stun. So they will be forever stunned. But this book is mostly important. And I hear a lot of people say all the time, why don't you use the stun repulsor? Well, as much fun as it is, they do go everywhere. And yes, that's great. But the thing is, with the stun baton, and if you min-max the stun baton, is that you don't want them to fly away from you. You want them to keep killing them, right? So you want to keep stunning them, you want to keep dealing damage to them so you have a higher chance to dismember, and you want to proc the 10% chance for euthanizer. So this is great in more of an open area, like if you want to do the Horde Night on the ground. It's really cool. But this is the way to go. Now, you can also say, well, how about in POIs? Well, I still don't think the stun repulsor mod is the way to go, because you want to stun them in a doorway. That way, zombies coming, trying to get to you can't, because there's a zombie in the doorway. Now, zombies do push each other, of course, but if you use the nerd tats, you'll stun the whole thing. But if you make them fly, you have to rely on getting a new stun all the time. Yes, there's a 50% chance, but sometimes you don't really get those odds, and you can go like 4 or 5 hits without actually getting a charge, and yeah, that's when things go bad. So generally I don't use this mod as much fun as it is. And lastly, before we go, these last 2 variants are excellent with a sledge as well, because your sledge has pretty good AoE stun as well. Maybe I wouldn't use a 3 wide. I'd probably use 2 wide. But yeah, it's really good. Okay, to sum up. First, Horde base. Very simple melee setup. Can't go wrong with it. But you can use guns for this as well. Like, yeah, it's alright. You can essentially just put a block on the side right there, and you can throw some mollies. Make sure to aim the molly roughly there, because the circumference of the AoE is quite large. So if you hit that block in the middle, it'll all get set on fire. And the second one is more for ranged setup, but of course this setup also works for both. You can use melee, you can use ranged, they're both fine. This is a more safe variant. Of course, this variant also applies to here. You can do that. That's technically a 6th variant. And then we have the stun baton / sledge setup right there, and a safer variant of the stun baton / sledge setup. Now, one thing I have to note that I probably should have said at the beginning of the video, this is still only like a demo version. It doesn't need to look exactly like this. What I'm focusing on here is the connection points, where the zombies stand, where you stand. Right. If you want to really min-max this setup, you want this to be 15 blocks tall in order to avoid zombies falling to the ground and go into destroy all mode, which you want to avoid at all costs. But early on, this doesn't matter. But if you want to do a late game variant of this, everything should go up to 15 blocks from the ground, just to be safe. And of course, you want to have something above you so you don't get birds. And the easiest way to deal with birds is just to put spikes. Wood spikes is more than fine, exactly above you. So, essentially, you have this and that. Because if you stand here, vultures will always target the block right above you. Right. So as long as you have, I usually do like a 3x3 area, right, and I stand in the middle. That'll catch all the vultures I want to get.